Calmness for many is an ideal, a dream, something perhaps for a future self, but with techniques that can be applied today and in the now, we can find our way immediately to the center of calmness. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Center of Calmness, where we take you from stress to more successful than ever before. Tonight, we're super blessed to have Mr. Patrick Ratchford with us. Welcome, Patrick.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Glad to have you here. How are things with you? I understand you're calling in from Williamsburg. How are things in Virginia these days?
Yes, indeed. Just a few minutes outside of our capital, and the climate's a bit nippy uh, today, uh, but life is still good.
That's glad to hear. Now, being so close to the Capitol, I wonder if you're experiencing any of the pre-election drama as things heat up before the 3rd of November.
Indeed, as we say, the situation is very organic at the moment. It's forever evolving on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're witnessing genetic evolution at an exponential rate, right?
Yes, indeed.
That's awesome. Well, you just the few seconds that we've been on so far, you just have this tremendous calmness about you, and I'm curious to know, were you always this way, or was it a process and evolution for you as you went through your life?
Well, thank you, DK. It was a process, if you will. It was uh, I'm continually evolving, and so being involved in the business world and traveling throughout the country and throughout the world, you encounter different levels of stress, right? Different levels of anxiety, and so I took it upon myself to to identify a medium that would allow me to relax and to de-stress myself, um, and to, more importantly, think clearly. Some people would say to release the brain fog. And so I did some research on different forms of meditation, and I experimented here and there, and I identified one form that has worked for me successfully for many years. And so I've stuck with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so important to find a solution that works in your specific situation, and yeah, that's what I recommend to the audience as well. It doesn't matter which of the thousands of techniques one leverages, as long as we're leveraging something to move toward calmness and, as you said, Patrick, clarity. But I wonder if, before we get into the technique, as much as you're willing to share of the one that you found that resonated best with you, can you take us back to that moment when you realized you needed that technique, when you perhaps had a high level of stress, anxiety, or overwhelm, perhaps, and what that moment was like, and what the situation, just to, perhaps it might relate with someone in the audience, your actual experience.
Certainly, DK. I'm having tried the normal avenues to try to de-stress, right? You go to the gym, you go for a walk, an invigorating run, you try to sit by the fireplace and read a book, have a relaxing conversation with a loved one. All those are well and good, but I still felt like I was missing something. And so that catapulted me into searching for a method that would surpass the temporary relaxation that you might experience after an adrenaline rush of working out, or aerobic activity, or a spirited walk, or a stimulating conversation. And so I was always aware of, as a child growing up, you see monks, whether on TV or in the movies, or sometimes walking down the street. I say walking down the street because I've spent a lot of time in Thailand. So just
Okay.
shortly after sunrise, the monks are walking down taking donations because they're not allowed to hold any currency. And so the locals will feed them each morning as they go around, and they'll give them a blessing or give them a positive story to inspire them for the week. So, in a nutshell, because of the typical methods were just temporary, and I felt like there was something still missing, that that started my research into meditation. And like anyone, at first you think it's impossible. You know, it's like, my gosh, 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And
Right.
the first test was 2 minutes, and that 2 minutes felt like it was an hour. You know, I thought, oh my gosh. But as I progressed, 2 minutes turned into 4 minutes, 4 minutes turned into 8 minutes, 8 minutes turned into 20 minutes, and 20 minutes, it reversed. 20 minutes felt like 5 seconds. So that's how I got started into my journey into meditation.
That's very cool. So maybe if I could ask a before and after question, or two questions perhaps, the
Sure.
moments before, as you know, say maybe if you could take us back to that time in Thailand when you were observing the monks and seeing and you know catching the vibe that they had as they lived, and then you were using your what as you call them temporary stress release, like you said, reading a book or sitting by the fire, having or finding a way to take yourself out of that stressful moment and only to find it to return. Maybe could you just take a few seconds to explain or help us understand what that felt like as you would engage in that spirited walk, and then you felt the reversion back to high stress. What did that feel like, and how did that motivate you to seek and be willing to spend time in meditation?
My journey in this life, I feel that our entire experience is what we have, whether it's the next 30 years, the next 40 years, perhaps the next 50 years. If you look at statistics, we may have anywhere from 70 to 85 years on this earth. And so I wanted to maximize my experience for this journey. If I'm going to be here for 70 years or 80 years or 90 years, how do I maximize it? And so I found that consistently, whether it was weightlifting or aerobics or walking, even if it was the ocean or uh, walking in the mountains, there was that certain something that was missing. And so when I did a search, like most of us do nowadays on our favorite search engine, and because of my life experience of when you see monks, they seem very relaxed, very at peace. And so I thought if I could capture just a bit of that relaxation that they're experiencing, if I could capture that peace, just a fraction of it, I would be happy. So I think that's what sparked it, to that desire to capture a true calmness, a true peace from within, because all the external pursuits, they were temporary. And so I always have heard, and I think all of us, including your listeners, have heard that true peace comes from within. You can't seek it from without. And if you do seek it from without, it's temporary. And so I had to prove that to myself. But
Right.
after proving that to myself, truly, it is from within. Not to say that I don't enjoy the chirping of the birds and seeing a butterfly fly across the pond, or a dog playing with a stuffed animal on the carpet, or chasing another dog at the dog park. But equally as satisfying is the peace that is achieved from within.
That's cool. I think I understand now where you're coming from, where this almost became a quest for you, right? As soon as you saw the monk and saw that they had found the peace, that it
And
became almost like an object of desire. And then, of course, the learning and understanding from a cerebral standpoint of the peace that comes from within is one thing, but it's another to experience it and to see and to meet someone else who has experienced it. No, I totally get that. So if I could ask about your journey, then how did you find your way into starting the practice of meditation?
when I delved into this arena, everyone, and you alluded to it earlier, you have folks that believe in open-eyed meditation. You have folks that believe in closed-eye meditation. You have folks that believe you just focus on your breathing. You have folks that believe you focus on your heartbeat. You have folks that believe you focus on a mantra. Regardless whether it's your breath, your heartbeat, your mantra, open-eyed closed eye, try them all and see which one resonates best with you. And so, personally speaking, I've tried multiple forms of meditation, and I have found that just a simple mantra internally, repeated for 20 minutes, twice a day, enables me to go throughout the day with a certain clarity, a certain clearness, uh, both in the business world, my relationships, my planning, and the residual effect carries on a little bit into the next day. I say a little bit because if I skip a day, I noticed. At first, I thought, what's a day? You know,
Right, right,
um,
right.
but regardless of how long you do it, it's it's important to maintain the consistency uh, because it does wear off, and that's what I will share.
Interesting. Did you seek a specific school, or did you find your resources online? How did you find your path to even begin sampling the technique that ended up with this mantra that you settled on?
Multiple sources. Some was an internet search, some was through traditional research at the library. I had a few books that I had never opened in my own personal library. Um, and I found a combination of them because even though I focus on a mantra, there are some schools that it has to be a specific mantra or it has to be from this selection of mantras that regardless of what mantra you choose, and the public doesn't even know, a loved one doesn't even know, a mantra that you can repeat that is not associated in your everyday life, right? You don't want to use a mantra of your dog's name because it won't seem as unique or as impactful. So identify a mantra within yourself that you do not use on an everyday basis and keep it to yourself because this is your own personal development. And so it was to answer directly a combination of research through the internet, a combination of traditional research through books, and then picking or choosing what works best for me.
That is awesome. And the other thing that caught my attention was I think you mentioned that you don't actually speak the mantra. Is that did I hear that correctly?
Yes, I repeat it internally. I don't verbalize it aloud, but I repeat it internally.
So you speak it
And,
within
and,
your
and
own mind. Okay.
yes,
Did you find it better than this? Because I actually, I wouldn't say I haven't heard of it before, but I've heard a lot more folks talk about the spoken mantra. So this is very interesting. Do you find that perhaps as effective or more effective than the spoken version?
for me personally, yes. I've heard great things about the spoken one, but the deepness of my meditation, I felt by trying both for my own experience, by repeating it internally, it aligned my focus and allowed me to go deeper. And when I got out of it, it seemed more peaceful.
I see. Okay, and closer to calmness, absolutely, or
Yes.
farther down the path of calmness. That's great. One concern that I've heard from, I wouldn't say someone in the audience, but somebody that I've worked with before is the tendency of the mind to wander, and I suppose that's why your spoken mantra advocate speaking the mantra out loud because it tends to engage more, more body elements in the practice. How did you find this practice of internalized mantra to work for you? Did you find that your mind wandered at first and then you grew in strength over time, or were you instantly able to pick it up and run with it?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, DK, that the mind wanders, right? And it's contrary to what we're trained in life. You're told think about your actions, right? Think before you act. And so to reverse that or to flip that switch off when you're trying to think, if you're in a negative situation or if you're in a challenging situation, you want to think, how do I get out of this? Can I go around it? Can I go under it? Can I go over it? Can I go through it? Is there someone in my experience that can remove this obstacle from my life, right? But when it comes to meditation, you have to flip that switch off. And it's not just the switch of solution finding, the switch of, okay, I'm relaxed. And when you're relaxed, you're thinking, did I pay that bill yesterday? Should I take my car into the shop? Oh, I haven't spoken with my aunt or my uncle in a couple days. I wonder what my brother's doing. Do I need to take my dog to the vet? Oh, I forgot my clothes at the dry cleaner. And all
Right.
these thoughts are coming because you're relaxed. So there's nothing wrong with that. Don't look at that as failure. Acknowledge it, and you bring yourself back. So I found that yes, in the early days, it was constant. I'm bringing myself back. But the amount of times if you find yourself drifting become less and less through the consistency of meditation. And so now it's very, very minimum. If I feel a thought popping up, I'm able to flip the switch and refocus. And just by doing it internally. So to answer your question, the as the mind drifts, yes, but as you consistently practice your meditation, the drifting becomes less and less, and your ability to bring yourself back becomes quicker and quicker.
I understand. It's almost like flexing a muscle, or like you said, hitting the gym and weightlifting. Eventually, you can lift more weight. And I suppose that would
Yes,
equate to more time in focus and less time out of focus.
absolutely.
Wow, that's great. And of course, you're showing the evidence of having mastered and achieved the result that you're after, just by the way we're speaking here today. One center of calmness to another, from a certain point of
Well,
view.
thank
That is so awesome. If I could ask, how long did you engage in the practice, this internalized mantra meditation practice, before you began to see real results? Say, for example, you were meditating in the morning and in the evening, and say if you measured your state at noon, how long did it take before you began to really notice that as you went through your business day, at noon, at 1 or 2, you were still enjoying that calmness, even as you were in the fight, so to speak?
Sure, sure. I would say for me, DK, it's probably around week 3. You know, the your critical mind, your first week or two, you're like, is this stuff work? You know, is this hokey pokey? Is this nonsense? Is this urban myth? And so your critical mind is constantly reevaluating. Is there another technique that I might be better suited to or for? So I would say by week 3 of consistently meditating 20 minutes a day, twice a day, week 3, I felt something. Um, it's just that certain something between the thinking mind and the subconscious, that in between, and was just peaceful. Now, it only lasted a fraction of a second,
Sure,
but that fraction of a second of clarity still made it all worthwhile.
of course.
Um, and then, of course, the residual effect stuck around, and each day after week 3, it became easier and easier, and I experienced that fraction of a second more and more.
And that's super powerful. I wanted to highlight that for just a moment, how powerful that fraction of a second is, especially as you first experience it. When you've never experienced it before, I've found that in my own life. At first, it was, you mentioned the ocean before, and that was where I first
Yes.
discovered mine. So it was at the time external,
Oh,
somewhat
wow.
internal, but largely external. Right? I'm using the ocean as a grounding force, right, which is very significant. It provides a significant shift all by itself. So
Absolutely.
that's where I discovered that peace point that you're talking about, and over time, I've eventually developed a practice to internalize that also. But
Wonderful.
yeah, I just wanted to highlight that fraction of a second. It's huge, and for folks that have
Yes.
never experienced it before, it is that you have to experience it. You'll never be the same afterwards. I would say, and I'm
Yes.
sure Patrick, you would agree as well. So,
Absolutely.
as a more mature meditator now, how long is that fraction of a second for you at this point?
What's interesting, DK, is that the longer you meditate, my experience has been time ceases to exist. So it's it has become difficult to identify how long that fraction of a second is now. Is it 30 seconds? Is it 2 minutes? Because now when I meditate for 20 minutes, it literally feels like I just got started. It's only been 2 minutes. There's no way it could have been 20 minutes. So that same framing, I could not identify. I just know it happens more consistently. And because my 20 minutes feels like 2 minutes now, my 20 minutes sometimes feels like 20 seconds, that fraction of a second could now be a minute. It could be 3, 4, 5 minutes, but I couldn't pinpoint it for you because it doesn't have any constraints. And because I become accustomed to it, I've never boxed myself in and said, "Oh, now it's gone." Oh, here it comes. I just experience it as it occurs.
Understand. And yeah, the way that's coming across to me as you say it, and I totally understand that that's a difficult number to define. But actually, that's quite profound from my point of view. As I see it, the fraction of a second is a moment of peace that finds you, right? And
Yes.
your current experience, as you're explaining it now, where you have no idea how long that moment lasts, that's when you're within the moment yourself and actually entering
Right.
into that experience. And so you're actually there, right? And so you're there as long as you wish to be there. And then, like you
Yes.
said, time
Well
really has
said.
no meaning but you. Wow, that's huge. Yeah, that's a profound revelation for our audience as well. I think our time is up at the moment. Though I would love to perhaps come back and revisit some of these topics in the future. And I think
Absolutely.
you have a lot to teach, and I would like to invite the audience to reach out to you, Patrick, if they'd like to learn more about your practice. Do you offer any kind of coaching, speaking opportunities, anything where folks can leverage some of your experience?
Absolutely, DK. I'm, of course, prior to this pandemic, I was speaking in all 50 states, 5 or 6 foreign countries. Now, a lot of it is done digitally. Um,
Sure.
there's a few books out there. There's a few spoken word programs out there. There's dozens of articles that I've written that they can simply type my name into their favorite search engine. Uh, they're welcome to reach out on any of the platforms or social media to simply say hello or leave a comment or a different any type of challenge that they may be encountering. If I have a moment, I usually take a few minutes throughout the day to reply to some comments and what have you. So, yes, any of the social media platforms, your listeners can feel free to reach out, even if they don't have a particular challenge, just to simply say hello. That's fine as well.
Excellent. And it's super generous of you to open yourself up like that, to network and collaborate and help others find the experience that you've found.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful, and I know the audience is as well. So again, everyone, Patrick Ratchford, available pretty much everywhere, right? Facebook, Instagram,
Thanks.
Twitter, as well as easy to find via search as well. So well networked online and easy to locate. And I hope you'll reach out to Patrick and leverage what he's learned for your own life and for your own calmness.
Okay.
And thanks, Patrick,
Well,
again for joining me today.
absolutely, DK. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I wish you and your listeners well, and may they be safe and healthy uh, while we get through this new normal.
Yeah, the new normal, hopefully soon to be the was normal. I
Yes,
look I
yes.
look
Well,
forward to a day very soon when you can hit the speaker circuit again and get out and about and see a lot of folks in person and network that way.
great. Thank you, DK.
Thanks again, Patrick.
All
And
right.
for the Center of Calmness, I'm DK Warner.